I am so glad that you are here. Today we are talking about a topic that I love, that I'm excited to share with you, and just because it has made such a difference in my marriage, I wanted to bring it to you and give you some practical ideas. So we've all heard of the 5 love languages. If you haven't read this book by Gary Chapman, then I really recommend it. I will leave a link for you so that you can check it out. But he goes along in this book and he talks about the different ways that people show and receive love. And I really want to preface this by saying that marriage is not necessarily, God's plan for marriage is not necessarily making you happy. You being happy is not the number one goal of your marriage. I hate to break it to you, but that is not God's goal. Now, whenever we are looking to the Lord to guide our marriage and we are serving Him, there is a much joy and happiness that comes from that. I am very happy in my marriage, but I know that my happiness isn't the number one goal of my marriage, and it shouldn't be the number one goal of my husband's life is to make me happy. I know there's all those kind of funny sayings and if mama ain't happy, those kind of things, but we really have to get down to the truth that marriage is about 2 imperfect people coming together to do more for God together than they could do on their own. That is the primary goal of marriage. Now, having a loving relationship, having that communion with another person is definitely important, and that is God's design for the marriage. But I want you to know that whenever you are serving the Lord and you are serving your husband and you are living a life that's pleasing to the Lord, you are going to find so much joy from that. But that doesn't mean it doesn't take work. So today we're going to talk about the practical ways that you can incorporate the 5 love languages into your marriage and actually practically use them to better your marriage. Now, we're only going to take a couple of minutes for each of these 5 love languages, but I go into more depth in the Thriving Mom Club. There's a video for each of the 5 love languages, and in those videos I share how you can show love in each of those 5 ways. But if you want to check that out, make sure to go to ashleyvarner.com/thrive to see all of that is available in the Thriving Mom Club. The first is quality time. This is whenever you spend time with someone. It might mean going somewhere, but it might also mean just spending time with them, being in their presence. And it really just depends on the person. Some people, their quality time means talking, spending time like eye to eye, face to face talking. Others, it might be just that quiet, sitting next to each other while you're reading the paper. It really just depends on your personality. And so quality time is definitely something that I recommend doing and making it a point. If you have weekly date nights, this is something that you can do. I have found that whenever my husband and I go out to dinner for a date night, it's usually easier for us to talk to each other because there's not a lot else going on. There's only so many places that they can look. That's not like they're being distracted by things. And so we really have some great conversations. In the car is another place that we have this quality time where we're driving somewhere, maybe to church, or we're going on a vacation and the kids are asleep in the back, and we just talk during that time, and that can be quality time. So sometimes we think that this quality time and the way that we show these has to be some big elaborate thing, and really it's just finding ways to incorporate it into your daily life. The second love language is acts of service. Now, this is definitely the one that my husband is. This would be the kind of thing where if your husband goes and fills up your car with gas beforehand, maybe he starts doing the dishes before you ask him to help you, those kind of things. But usually the way that someone, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but the way that someone shows love is likely, and not always, but it's likely the way that they receive love too. So if you find that your husband is doing those things, maybe he's not buying you flowers, but he is helping you empty the dishwasher, things like that, maybe that's his love language, and that would be how he would receive love. So maybe helping him empty out the garage, those kind of things are the way that you can do that if that is his love language. The third love language is gifts, and this is the language that I love to give love it's not necessarily what I expect back, but I love giving gifts. I love seeing someone who I have found something that's just for them, and maybe it's something that I saw and I wasn't really thinking about getting them something, but it just reminded me of them and I can purchase it and give it to them. Giving gifts is probably the easiest to identify of the 5 love languages because you're actually getting something. All of those things that we think of whenever we think of love, showing love, things like buying flowers or candy, jewelry, those kind of things would all fall into this gifts category. The 4th category is physical touch. So I know what you're thinking, and sure, it doesn't include being intimate with your husband, but it can also mean holding hands when you're walking down the street, maybe giving a hug. And I noticed that this is also, actually when I took the test, just to be honest, I feel like I was probably equal across the board. And I thought that that meant I was high maintenance, but I'm thinking that it means I'm low maintenance because it's really just anything. I'll take gifts, I'll take words of affirmation, I'll take, all those things. But physical touch is definitely one that was high on my list. And let me give you a couple of examples of how this can show up in your day-to-day life. My husband and I work together every day, and if we have to go outside to do something or if we're heading somewhere, we'll usually hold hands. It's not something that we force, but it's something that I will just reach for his hand and we are walking somewhere, and that kind of partners with the quality time because I feel like I'm more connected to him maybe that way. But other ways that it might be are putting your arm around someone, or I know when I walk past the kids, I'm usually touching them in some way, maybe rubbing their head, putting my hand on their shoulder, holding their hand. Of course, we are picking up the baby all of the time, and, giving him kisses on the cheeks and stuff. So all of those things fall under this physical touch category. And the last is words of affirmation. So this would be the things like, good job, I'm so proud of you, those kind of words. And this would also, I think, be if you sent a card to someone and you wrote words in them, that could mean something very special to them. If they are someone who really loves to hear those words of affirmation, that can be the highlight of their day. In fact, like I said, I feel like I'm all of them. I'm just every love language, I guess. But for me, whenever I am thinking about words of affirmation, and in my office I actually have a card that someone sent me flowers, and in this card they just said some of the nicest things about the worship that I had led that week, and it was just something that spoke so close to my heart. I still don't know who it was. It just said that my love for Jesus made them hungry for more of him, and that spoke to my heart so much, those words of affirmation. These flowers were given to me years ago, maybe more than 5 years ago for sure, probably more like 10 years ago, but I kept the card and it's pinned up in my office because it's something that meant so much to me. Those are those words of affirmation, and I would say a little tip on words of affirmation is the more specific you can get, the better. I talk a little bit about this in the episode about raising confident kids, and I talk about specific praise, but this can apply to adults too. So if you have a husband who words of affirmation is definitely his love language, and you want to show him love in that way, you can get really specific in your words and in the affirmating words that you can make such a big difference in his day. Like I said, we tend to give love in the same way that we receive it. It's not always true, but sometimes that gets lost in translation. So my husband, I can remember a time earlier in our marriage when he decided to clean out our shed. And I was a little frustrated because he had been at work and now he was home and he wants to clean out the shed and he doesn't want to be with me and he doesn't want to spend time with us. This is all the stuff I was thinking in my mind. And he asked me if I would go and help him. And I said no, I had stuff that I had to do and I didn't do it. And I regret that to this day. Because if you think about it, if I had gone and helped him clean out the shed, now really, what was it, a couple hours maybe, but I'm filling his love tank by doing that act of service, but we are doing it together. So I would have gotten my quality time. We probably would have been talking during that time, and I feel like our marriage would have been better after that than if I had just gone and helped him instead of just being inside and kind of fuming about him not coming in. So this is really something that you have to consider whenever you begin to see the intention behind what your husband's actions are. And if he, like I said, if he fills up your car with gas, then give him credit for that. See the heart behind what he's doing. So many times, even if it's not necessarily the way that we see love, if we are just aware of what we are seeing. So say my love language is not acts of service, and my husband goes and fills the car up with gas, I might think, well, that's just what he's supposed to do. He's my husband. But if I look at it as him showing me love, even if that's not my love language, it still fills my tank. It still makes me feel loved because I know that's the way that he feels love. So I can give him credit for that, and really we're both better off, even if that wasn't necessarily the primary way that I receive love. I just want to remind you about the very first thing that I said. Marriage, having a perfect marriage or having a great marriage, is not about everyone being happy. It's about two people coming together, becoming more like Christ in this life together, and doing more for Him, for the Lord, than they could do on their own. So whenever you start to see your marriages that way, when you start to see that by filling your husband's love tank, you are helping him to really fully live out what God has for him, that starts to change the way that you live. I hope that knowing these 5 love languages helps you to become more intentional and really just more aware of how your husband may be showing you love, even if you don't feel it right away. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I will talk to you guys next time.